Kohn Smith, who is live in Sacramento, joins us here on the Full Court Press. He is a maestro, as I've been told to use a fancy word in the fishing expertise world. And he was also an assistant under coach, the legendary coach, I might put it, as Bobby Knight. Kohn Smith joining us here on the Full Court Press. Kohn, thanks for your time.
Well, thanks. I'm glad to be here with you. Yeah.
I got to ask you this. Legend has it, I don't know if it's a myth or truth, but you were going to be, or at least coaching Skyview basketball in the summer, and then an offer came to go be an assistant coach at Indiana. Is that truth, or is there more to the story?
Well, there's always a little more to the story, but that's about it. Yeah, that's true.
So what was that experience like? I mean, was it Bobby Knight who called you, or how did that end up taking place?
Well, what happened was I had met Coach Knight at a clinic, and I asked him a question about defending Herb Williams in the Big Ten championship game. It's a clinic in Salt Lake, and he was doing a big expo there because they just won, I think, the Pan Am Games and won the NCAA. And so I was just a young coach, and so I asked him a question about defending the post. And he said, "God, that's a really good question." So he spent about an hour on all the different ways to defend a big guy, front him, help off a non-shooter, take away the reverse pass, play in and out, play, all his shoulder, all the different ways he could do. And then after, he says, "Hey, come and see me after the clinic." So I'm in Salt Lake, just, in an old pickup truck, because I was coaching at Westside, a little high school up in southern Idaho, and I didn't have any money. So I wait around after the clinic, and he's talking to all the college coaches and all the people there, the big name guys, and finally they kind of cleared out. And I walked up to him, and he says, "Hey, I just want to tell you that was a really good question." So I said, "Well, thanks." And he says, "Do you know a place to get ice cream?" And I said, "Well, yeah, Coach, I do." But he said, "Well, let's go." And I said, "Hey, I just got an old pickup." He said, "I don't care. We're going." So we drive up and down State Street there in Salt Lake and find a Baskin Robbins and get some ice cream. So I says, "Where are you going?" And he says, "Well, I'm going to go up into Montana, meet Norm Ellenberger, who was the coach at New Mexico then." And he said, "Well, we're going to go fly fishing. I'm trying to learn how to fly fish." And I said, "God, Coach, I've been fly fishing since I was 8 years old." I said, "Where are you going?" He goes, "The Madison River." And I said, "Gee, that's where I've fished since I could walk." So I drew him out a map and told him where to go, and I gave him a bunch of flies I had there in my pickup truck, and, took him back. Well, for the next week, he's calling me every night at this little high school up in the west side home there and asking me if I knew another place to go fishing. So I'm there helping coach football. I'm telling the guys, "Hey, Bobby Knight's calling me every night." And they go, "Oh, yeah, right. Sure." And I said, "No, he really is." So that went on for a week, and then I didn't hear anything from him. And at Christmas time, here came 4 pretty good-sized boxes, and it had every one of Indiana's game films that they'd played that year with a little note that said, "I know you really like to study how we play. I thought these might be good for you," and he sent me some training film. I'm like, wow, and so then, that had to be really expensive because they were 8mm films and stuff. And so then that summer, I get a call from Liddell Anderson at Utah State, and he says, "Hey, I don't know what's going on, but Bobby Knight says he'll come speak at our camp, but the only way he'll do it is if I get you to take him fly fishing." And so I said, "Well, he said, can you do that?" And I said, "Well, yeah, sure," because I was just going to work camp, and So Liddell would speak, and then he and I'd take off and went up into Idaho, southern Idaho and Montana fly fishing. So I got to know him that way. And then what ended up happening is I really got to know him. My teams were doing pretty good there. Up in Idaho, we'd won a couple state championships and things. And then he had me go back to his camps and clinics. And then they won the national championship in 1981 with Isaiah Thomas and that team. And one of his assistants left, and he calls me on the phone and he says, you're coming to Indiana as an assistant coach. He says, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you, you can't pass this up. I got it all set up to move you out here, so that's what's going to, so that's what happened. But, it's kind of great in two ways. One is that, somebody like me gets that kind of an opportunity. But the other one is that, there are hundreds of guys that wanted to go there, really. You just think about it. They just won the national championship and the former players and things like that. But he had got to know me, how I talk with people, and, he had me do a lot of things that really grilled me about basketball, and just felt like I was a young guy that would really help their program. So that's what happened. I went there, and when I was there 6 years. We won the Big Ten, I think 4 times, won the NCAA, won the gold medal in the Olympics with the 1984 team with Michael Jordan and Patrick Ewing and Chris Mullen, those guys.
Good heck.
Seriously.
It was a fantastic, really quite a meteoric, jet ride in basketball. So I was pretty darn fortunate.
Mr. Smith, as a Purdue grad, what was it like? Because I only know one side of Bobby Knight, and that's the one that threw the chair and all the anger and the yelling.
Yeah.
What was it like having that relationship with him that you described fishing, and then working with him when he was quite the motivator and quite the yeller?
Yeah. Well, there's no one that's more intense. That's for sure. And Gene Cady was really intense at Purdue too, but not quite to the level Bobby was, and they're both really just great coaches. But, really intense. He had no problem at all on pushing a player to his, abilities. I mean, if you weren't playing up to what he thought your ability was, then, he would push you to help you gain to get to that level. And the same thing with anyone in the program. You just worked at such a high intensity level, but things really mattered, and and he was tough on you and tough on players, but in the end, you really were able to reach your maximum abilities. And I don't know nowadays if we can do that, because to push people past their comfort level, but. No, he was great, absolutely great. Not easy to work or play for, but that's not what you wanted. You wanted to be the best you could be.
Hey, I have it on record, or at least that I read an article that said about that chair incident that you said all the other coaches should have thrown the chairs as well because it was that bad a refereeing. Is that true?
Yeah, it actually is true. I was sitting right there by him, and that was a Purdue game, by the way, but we were. Had a guy that just flat out, we felt like was just cheating. I mean, it was just awful. And so when Bobby threw the chair, he, of course, was suspended and everything, but I spent every day that next week going to the Big Ten office with Wayne Duke and sitting down and going over every play of the game. And they actually ended up suspending the referee, and everything from reffing. But yeah, it was awful, but that happens. And what was funny after is he did some advertisements with a local furniture store. It'd be like R.C. Willey's or somebody in Utah, big furniture store, and he says, "You buy a couch and I'll throw in a chair." So. And his story was that he was there coaching. There was this little old lady over in the corner across the court that didn't have a chair. He said she just shouted over, "Hey, Bob, toss me a chair." So he says, "What the heck? I just tossed her one over."
I heard that story.
I gotta ask you. You brought up the 1984 Olympic team. This team featured Michael Jordan, but then you cut Charles Barkley and John Stockton. So, first question, it's a two-part. What was it like coaching Michael Jordan? And two, what in the world were you thinking when you cut Charles Barkley and John Stockton?
Well, it is so hard. But Barkley was only 18 years old, and he was really, really young and pretty much overweight. And so that was part of it. And, we didn't have time to really develop and see what kind of player was going to be. Then the other thing is we're playing against 3-2 zones. All the European teams played 3-2 zones. And, they had all these big 7-footers and everything. So anyway, our whole offense and defense was devised to play against those teams. So you just try to make the best decisions. And, there were a lot of good plays. Karl Malone didn't make it because he had the chicken pox in the Olympic trials and couldn't go to the trials, so there's just things like that. And then, of course, good night, John Stockton. He made the final 20, and actually, Coach Knight really argued to keep him. I was in all the meetings, and so I know this for a fact, but he argued like heck to keep him, but Digger Phelps and a bunch of other coaches who were on the selection committee, they thought that it was real important that Coach Knight kept his own player, which is probably true. Politically, how do you cut? If you're Bobby Knight from the state of Indiana, how do you cut Steve Alford? He's the MVP of the state and Mr. Basketball and, first team All Big Ten as, freshman and sophomore. So, how do you cut your own player, and keep someone else? But Bobby's always said that, taking everything into consideration, he would have kept Stockton, who, both of them were small. John was, really small, and so was Steve Alford. But again, we're playing against zones, and Alford, I think, set all kinds of Olympic records in shooting. He hardly missed a shot through the whole Olympics. So, that's really difficult. Of course, now after everything Stockton's done, being all pro all these years and all these things, golly, you think how in the world could you not have taken him at that time? But Stockton was able to get with a great team with the Utah Jazz and great coaches and develop himself into being the best point guard maybe ever in the NBA. And I think a lot of that credit goes to Jerry Sloan and Phil Johnson and of course Frank and Scott Wade and those guys. They're the ones that really helped John, Stockton develop the way that he did. But those are just tough decisions you have to make as coaches, and you don't always make the right ones,
Legendary Coach Steve Kohn with us. Mr. Kohn, Kohn Smith. Sorry, I did it backwards. I apologize. I think all Jazz fans have a very bitter memory, more so recent, of Michael Jordan. What was it like back then with the Olympic team seeing him? Could you see ultimately what he ended up being, or was it maybe you didn't see him being the greatest of all time?
Oh, no. As soon as he started working with him, I was on the court with him every day for 6 weeks. And in every drill and everything that you did, he worked as harder than anybody else. And then he was, every day in practice, you'd turn to one of the other coaches and say, "Did you just see that?" It was just athletically, he was just a step above everybody. He just was incredibly gifted athlete. So, no, it wasn't hard. I will tell you a story. We were playing a game in the summer prior to the Olympics in the Hoosier Dome in Indianapolis, and there were 68,000 people there to watch it. So we'd played I think, 3 NBA All-Star games prior to that one and had beaten the NBA All-Star teams with this Olympic team. So I used to work out with them in the summer a little bit with Isaiah Thomas, and when they come back in the summer, so I kind of knew those guys. And so I went into the NBA locker room before the game just to say hi to guys. And so the NBA All-Star team had Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson as guards, and Kevin McHale and Norm Parrish as a forward, and Larry Bird. So Isaiah Thomas was from Indiana, and Larry Bird was from Indiana, and so I went in there, and Bird's got guys up against the wall saying, "We're not losing to these guys anymore. I don't care," And they were fired up to play. And I went back into our locker room, and there's, just see what Michael Jordan was looking like, and he could not wait to get on the court. It's like, there's no, hey, I'm intimidated, nervous. He could not wait to get out there to compete against those NBA greats, of all time. And I think we won, the Olympic team won by 15, and so it just was the team defense. And of course, we've been working and playing together for 6-7 weeks to that point, and they were playing at a really high level. But that Olympic team, good night. I mean, you got Patrick Ewing in the middle. Now think about this as his own offense. You got Patrick Ewing in the middle, playing a baseline, Michael Jordan at the free throw line, Chris Mullin on one wing, one of the greatest three-point shooters all time, Sam Perkins on another wing. He's 6'10", 6'11", really great three-point shooter. And then whoever on the point, Steve Alford on the point, who doesn't hardly ever miss a shot. So, you got the 3 shooters on the outside, Michael Jordan, the free throw line, who nobody can stay in front of, and then Patrick Ewing behind his zone on a baseline. That's pretty dang good zone offense.
That's an understatement.
Yeah.
Kohn, I wanted to ask you. You are very knowledgeable in the world of fishing, as you've already mentioned. That also helps you develop a really good relationship with the Utah Jazz. Tell me how that came about, because I know you've taken a few guys up to your ranch. You've taken a few guys fly fishing. What were those experiences like?
You know what? When you go fly fishing with somebody, it seems like you become their friends forever. And my first one that I really took was Larry Miller. And God, we just had the best time. He was so intense and so driven with everything that he did and putting the whole thing together in Utah. But knew a rancher that is kind of got to know him a little bit, and so I ended up taking him fly fishing. And then, God, when things would get tough, his secretary would call me and say, "Hey, coach, you need to take Larry fly fishing." And so I go, they're just so driven. They need time to get away from everything. And so we became really close. And then I, of course, kind of knew his sons as they were growing up and everything. And then he would have me take a lot of people. He had me take Wilford Brimley and the Osmonds and, different people like that, Governor Levitt and things like that. So I'd do that for Larry just because we're friends. And then now we still go up and spend a day or two with the whole Utah Jazz staff, my son and our guys. We take them all out and go fly fishing up at their ranch there for a day or two, usually just prior to the draft. So it's a lot of fun for us.
Kohn, side note or side question to this. I actually got a bunch of questions from a mutual friend of yours and mine. But I heard, and I wonder if this is true, that when you would go golfing with Bobby Knight, the assistant or the secretary would tell you to make sure that he won so he wasn't coming back in an angry mood. Is that true?
Well, no, but that's not a secret. But all of us that ever worked for Coach Knight, we we thought that things went a little bit better if he was able to win. he did not like losing at anything. Not at anything. I mean, believe me. So yeah, no, one time in the summer, I would run his summer basketball camp. And what I mean by that, the head coaches in the summer, they don't want to monkey around with registering kids and setting up everything. So the assistant set it all up, but he had a really huge basketball camp. And so day before camp, and I'm running the camp, there's going to be 800 kids and 50 coaches come in and all that. So I'm running the camp, and I'm down in the field house getting ready, and here came the trainer and says, "Hey, Kohn, coach wants you." And I said, "Well, what does he want?" He said, "He wants to play tennis." So the other two coaches, Joby Wright and Royce Walton, say, "Hey, Kohn, now be cool now. Don't, we're going into camp for 6 weeks, And so we get playing, and we played at a place we called Wimbledon. It was a rich guy there in Bloom, had this really immaculate court, but we get playing, and I get up 4-0, and he's getting pretty agitated. So I threw the rest of the games and let him win 6-4.
Just magically lost my serve.
Yeah. But we go back into the cave, in the bottom of Assembly Hall, and we're sitting there, and Steve Downing comes in, who's the assistant AD there. He played at Indiana, played for the Celtics, but he came in and says, "Hey, you guys play tennis? Who won?" And coach says, "Well," he says, "after I got going," he says, "I just kicked Kohn's ass." So that didn't go over real big with me. So he walks out, and Royce and Joby's like, hey. I said, "Hey, let me tell you something. That is the last time I'm letting that somebody win." And so they're like, "Oh, that's so." The next day, camp starts like at 2 at noon. Here comes the trainer to get me again. Says, "Bobby wants to play tennis." I turned to Joby and Royce. They're like, "Come on now, you got." I said, "Hey, I'm gonna win every point." It's like, "No, you can't." And they're walking, but I said, "I don't care." So we get playing, and I win the first set 6-0. He breaks his Ivan Lendl racket. And so he's madder than heck, and I'm going back to the service line. He's hitting balls past me. I turn around, and he's just steaming mad. He'll serve him up. I said, "We got to go to camp." He said, "I don't care about camp. Serve him up." So, I mean, he is hot. So we play again, and I'm up like 4-0 second set, and he breaks his other racket. So now he doesn't have a racket. And people are around the neighborhood are wondering what he's yelling, screaming. So I just go sit down on the bench, and he goes around to the pool house, and all of a sudden I hear all this splash and a crack. I thought, "Oh my heck, he's throwing all the guys' furniture in the pool." So I go around, and he's sitting fully clothed in the pool. All I can see is hat. And I don't say anything. I walk over in the pool house and get me a Coke, sit down, and he starts pounding his fist on the water. "I can't concentrate. I can't, let's go." So we jump in his brand new Lincoln that he just got. He's fishtailing through the neighborhood, soaking wet. Get the assembly, he goes, "Get out." So I get out. He takes off, and so, he comes back and camp and everything, doesn't talk to me for the full first week. And I'm running his camp. And he just goes around, "Can't anybody do anything? Look at those little smudge marks on the backboard, or look at the garbage can hasn't been emptied, or what." But the other assistants could have killed me, And then he one day said, "Come on, let's go." And I get in the car, and he says, "I don't," he was having some problems. He just said sometimes I hurt the guys I love the most, And so, but that's it. He's just so competitive and so driven to win at everything and so analytical. It doesn't matter what you're doing, playing. You better try to do it as well as you can, So anyway, I really love and appreciate him for that. He's not doing so well now. He's 80. He's got a little bit of dementia, shuffles his feet a little and forgets things. But I think he's going to go back to a game, Ohio State, here in the next little while. I just talked to him the other day. I love him to death. He's been great for me and great for a lot of really good players. The ones that are critical of him sometimes probably weren't very good players. And they use that as an excuse, but no, he was great. He's really helped a lot of people be successful, and and he's Bobby Knight. That's what he is, So that's what you got to take him for.
Hey, going back to your experience of being able to doing fishing and building relationships, who's one of the best people? I guess one of the most enjoyable experiences. Which person would that be with that stood out to you of a day of fishing that you never forget?
Oh, God, I have so many, but gosh, of course, Larry Miller, he was just wonderful for sure. And I don't know, I fished with Johnny Bench and I fished with John Havlicek, and I've done a bunch of fishing hole shows with Jerry McInnes. It was just one of the very founders of ESPN Outdoors.
Wait, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Smith, but did you just casually tell me that you went fishing with John Havlicek?
Oh, yeah, a lot of times, yeah. He was great. John's one of the really great people. But, see, he and Bobby Knight were teammates at Ohio State. They won the national championship.
Oh, I didn't know
there
that.
at Ohio State. Yeah, so that's kind of how I got to know him. But, we'd go every summer doing some stuff, yeah.
I got to ask.
That's just a lot. I hate to even say that because there's so many guys that been able, and they're all have been really great. I hate to leave somebody out, but
they're probably not even listening anyway. So
I don't know. But it's been fun. There's been just a lot of people that just been just great to fish with, and yeah.
I was just gonna say, your boy Steve is. I think he's helping at Ridgeline coaching, and then you got your other boy Chandler helping coaching in Mountain Crest. Did you ever tell them don't do it? Whatever you do, do not coach. Or
no, you don't do that as a parent. You got to let them live their own life. So no, they both have always enjoyed basketball and been good at it. Both of them were all staters in basketball, so it's just natural for them to coach, and they're really good coaches. They're both doing fine. They enjoy it and love it. But yeah, they always ask me questions. I'm like, I'm trying to forget basketball. My mind gets racing, but no, I enjoy it. I'm really glad they're able to do that. And, it's working with kids. Trying to help them learn how to do something. So they're good teachers. You got to like that.
I ran into you at the Nevada-Utah State basketball game at the Spectrum this past Saturday night. When you saw the Spectrum as it was, did it bring back a flood of memories of what that place used to be like, or what was that experience like for you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Great people there in Logan. I've always really loved the people there at Utah State. When you get away from it, you get away from it. I'm to the point where I just want to move on with life and do other things. I like to do things with the church and, with my family and this and that. So I don't go back to a lot of games, but no, I enjoy following, watch them on TV and everything, and as well as a lot of other teams. But I was there to see Steve Alford, because he came in as a freshman when I was at Indiana, and then was so great. He accomplished a lot of things there. So we've been close all through the years. It's just a coach-player relationship. So he got me some tickets, wanted me to come watch his team with my family. So, of course, we went. Absolutely.
What is the best fishing story you have? I mean, whether it was, when we talk fishing stories, people think about these long, drawn out lies. But for you, the experiences with the people you fished, tell me just one of the great memories that you had in your fishing experience that you won't forget.
Oh, I don't know. Probably, I don't know. There's so many. I don't know if I can pick out one, but I don't know. I fished in Russia. You know, that was pretty special. Walked the streets of Petropolsky. I fished in Cuba and walked the streets of Havana, and then took a tugboat up along the national parks and fished for bonefish and tarpon.
Wow.
But, you know, they're just, of course, they're, you know, once in a lifetime things like that. But no, probably just fishing with my dad on the Green River, you know, floating down and watching him catch fish for, you know, Dad, my brother. That's the most special of all of them, really.
Your boy's running the fishing store now, right? You're a retired man?
Yeah, I sold that to him, so he's doing really great. He supplies all the flies for all the sportsman's warehouses and you know, stores. So he's doing just great. Yeah, they sell a ton of flies, about 4 million of them a year, I think now.
Where can people find that store at?
Well, all the sportsman's warehouses, they're all of our flies. You know, every fly in those stores are his. And Shields, another one. Smith and Edwards, another one. So, yeah, they're all across the country.
Hey, Kohn, I know we said 20 minutes. You spent 30 with us, and I can't tell you how much of a pleasure it was.
Absolutely.
That was.
I'm sorry. You should have told me to shut up.
No,
No,
that's
not at
us.
all.
That's us saying we're going to spend as much time as we can. No, that was a blast. Hey, you know, I haven't been fishing since I was 12, so you gotta. I'm going to hold you to your word if you say yes. But will you take me fishing sometime?
Can you tie your own shoes?
Yes.
Okay, then I can take you fly fishing.
That's what I'm talking. I've never been fly fishing in my life, ever, not once. And I would love to learn from one of the greatest to ever do it.
It's not near as hard as you think, and it's really, I could teach you how to fly fish in 5 minutes. So
I'm going to hold you. I'm going to hold you to it. Then we'll go fly fishing sometime in the spring.
Sounds great.
Kohn, thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciate it. Let's do it again sometime.
All right.
All right. Take care. You bet.
Bye bye.